Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniela, and on this channel we do crafting with a cocktail, which means we craft and do a cocktail and drink it and make it and all those good things all in one. If that sounds exciting to you, stick around. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been here before, I'm even more grateful for you guys. Let's get into it. Cheers! Our first DIY is a super sweet but simple little home decor sign that says "Home is wherever I'm with you." It's from a song I really like, actually by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. I don't know if you guys know that song, but it's just really sweet and I love it. And so all I'm doing is taking one of these little houses I got from Dollar Tree, and I don't know if it's because I have like fake nails on, but I had a really hard time popping it out, which I've done in the past. So I just used my little tiny mini hammer thing to pop it out, and I also couldn't find my X-Acto knife at this point. So I'm using scissors to scrape off the extra glue and paper that was on the frame and just vacuuming it up with my little ladybug friend. Then I'm just doing my best to get the label off the back. I've seen so many people use their heat gun, and for some reason I thought of that and decided to do it manually anyways. So I am scratching this off. I actually end up losing, I think like 2 or 3 nails during the course of this entire video. I don't know, this is probably why. Anyways, after a while, I just kind of give up, and I start painting it anyways. I'm just using regular black acrylic paint and a brush, and painting the entire house once. I believe I only do 1 coat of this because it coated pretty well, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, I just use that black paint, paint it all up on there, and then I'm going to essentially stain the frame of my house. I've seen this technique on Unicorn Dust Designs. She got it from another channel, but I can't remember which one it was. Essentially, I'm dipping a baby wipe into Waverly's Antique Wax and then smudging it, smearing it, whatever, onto the frame of the house, and it leaves a beautiful stain color. Part of the reason a lot of people like this technique is that as opposed to stain, it doesn't take forever to dry and it doesn't stank. Once I've finished that, I end up getting a little bit smarter and grabbing my heat tool to help dry the back of my house, or the front in this case, but anyways, the black painted area. I'm just going to use my heat tool to dry that up. By the way, I'll have this and my little ladybug friend linked down below if you're interested in buying them. They're both pretty inexpensive and they really come in handy when you are in a pinch to make DIYs, or if you're impatient or whatever else. Then, as always, take a sip of your drink before you move on. I made this decal with my Cricut. Again, it says "Home is wherever I'm with you." And I used, I think it's called frosted vinyl. It's basically like translucent, so it's not transparent and it's not opaque, it's in between. It just has a nice frosty look to it, and I'm pressing it down as best I can with my burnisher or scraper tool, whatever. By the way, I heard that they are selling these now at Dollar Tree, so if you need an extra tool, go ahead and grab it. This is what we're looking at so far. And after that, I decided to end up gluing mine on the front of the house. Oh, before that actually, some of these letters were really skinny and did not transfer very easily, so I'm just using my weeding tool and my burnishing tool to put them in place. So like some of the little legs of the E's and stuff were a little crooked, so I just had to fix those and press them down. Now I'm hot gluing it to the base or frame of my house and cleaning up any extra hot glue. Okay, so I really debated making this a reversible sign, and then the paint looked really ugly on the back, so I didn't. So anyways, I'm painting the inside, or the back side, black again. Sorry that the paint tube is directly in front of the camera. I don't always pay attention to these things. And then I didn't want to screw up the edges or the sides of the framed area, so I end up going to grab another baby wipe, and I'm just kind of smudging it so it has a little bit of a gradual look to it. It's okay. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look good. It's whatever, but at least I know that I didn't get black paint all over the areas that are going to show, and this way the backside looks a little bit more cleaned up and professional and a bit more like a finished product. I did have to go over this a couple times because that colorful paper kept showing through. Then I clipped a few little pieces of flowers from a floral pick that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I am just gluing them into place on my sign. I kind of like this asymmetrical look, but you could of course put flowers or the same little designs on both sides. And here's how she turned out. I think it's really sweet and simple and subtle. I actually really, really like how this one turned out. What do you think? Hey guys, just popping in to tell you some really exciting news. This video is in collaboration with Savvy Crafts with Savannah. Savannah and I have hit it off for a few months now. She was the first person to collab with me and give me a chance when I had 35 subscribers. At this time, I have 402, and I could not be more thankful for this girl, as well as all the other wonderful people in this YouTube community. So today's drink is dedicated to Savannah. I will link her description down below. Let's check out what we made today. Today's drink is a sweet and spicy tequila drink, just like my girl Savannah. She's got a sweet touch to her and a little bit of sass and spice. So the night before I made this drink, I used some chunked up pineapple and one jalapeno sliced and stemmed in half and filled it in a jar with a bunch of tequila. You can make this as little or as much as you want. I really like this drink. It's actually one of my favorite drinks ever that I make, usually in summer, but it called for the occasion. And so left that overnight in my jar, and then I'm just pouring it into a glass with some ice, and then to garnish it I'm using some jalapenos and a little bit of lime, and I'm topping it off with some Sprite. You could top this off with grapefruit soda, you could use sparkling water, however you want. This is just personally how I enjoy mine, and yeah, that's pretty much it, other than just oh, and I did garnish it with a little pineapple. No wonder. I was like, where did I go? Give it a good mix, and you're about done. It's so good. Our next DIY is super sweet and simple. Look how cute that is. This is a decorative candle design, so let's keep in mind, if you want to burn it, take that stuff off, okay? Essentially, unless you know how to do that weird tunneling thing. But this one's extremely easy. I just bought this magenta candle at Dollar Tree. It was the apple cinnamon flavor, and I'm just repurposing it from an old DIY. And I'm just cutting some burlap ribbon as well as some twine and wrapping it around there and hot gluing it. I also dried out some oranges and grapefruits, which you'll see again in a later DIY. All I did was slice them all up, throw them in the oven on some parchment paper at about 250-ish for like 2.5 hours until they basically look dried and a little bit crispy on the edges. So I used that to help decorate this candle as well. So here you see I wrapped my twine around a few times, and then again the finishing touches are super simple. All I did was take my orange slice and some leaves from an old floral pick. Guys, always keep your leaves because they come in handy for other stuff. And then I just glue that onto my candle. This would be a super sweet decoration for your house or a gift for someone else. I really like how this one turned out. It has all my favorite colors. Let me brag to you a little bit more about my friend Savannah. She has so many gorgeous DIYs and crafts, lots of budget-friendly stuff, and she's got a personality that will leave you speechless. Go check out her collab video and channel linked below. Oh my goodness, this is by far my favorite DIY I have ever made. I made this large sign that says Daniela and Steven's Tequileria, grab a lime and a glass. Steven is my honey, in case any of you are new. So I just used one of those like tri-folding foam boards from Walmart, and all I did is I didn't even cut it, I just snapped off one of the edges. All you have to do is bend it just snaps right off. And then I'm using a wooden dowel and a yardstick to engrave some lines where I want my, essentially my wood slats to be. And I do end up going over this again later with my weeding tool because it didn't end up making a deep enough indent like I thought it would. So now I am taking a little chunk from my car sponge I got at the Dollar Tree. This worked really well for this project. You can use all sorts of different sponges, but this is so cost efficient because I just chop off little chunks every time I want to use it. And I am dipping it into a mix of Waverly Clear Wax, Waverly Antique Wax, and a little black acrylic paint. You do see kind of a pastel reddish color on there. I'll explain that in a minute. But anyways, I'm just going over the lines where these slats of wood would be separated or glued together, and again realizing it's not really sinking in the way I wanted it to, so I use my weeding tool to drag it across, and then it really kind of sinks into those areas. So this works out much better than my original plan, and as you can see there, you can even see little tiny pieces where that dark area is really sticking up so much better. So I end up doing this all the way down my entire board. Okay guys, I struggle bust a few times on this project and you'll see how much it gets worse later. I forgot to add my little knots. So I'm using this little tiny hammer tool that I used in the beginning to really press in and just give it like half moon or C shape curves and then kind of making ones opposing to it or just leaving them that way. But basically I'm not pushing it all the way in so it makes a perfect circle because that wouldn't look very natural. Now I'm going with the antique wax. A lot more black paint and a little bit of that clear wax, again, to really darken up these areas like it would be in a normal wooden knot. Just so you know, this technique I learned from the Peppermint Cactus channel. I will link her down below as well. And it's also been used on other people's channels as well, but she, I think, was kind of the originator of this. So originally I had that like almost salmon-y pastel brick color because I wanted a red tone to my wood, but it really wasn't giving me the vibe I wanted. So as you just saw a few seconds ago, I ended up adding like a burgundy-ish color to my little paint palette here. And then it totally becomes the color I want it to. Don't be afraid, it comes out really red in this area, but we tone it down more. I'm not sure what the pertinence of the clear wax is. I just know that I've done this technique before, and that's what Peppermint Cactus says. So yeah, use that clear wax. So, I don't know, maybe it just helps lightens it up in areas. Again, here's something I forgot. Now I'm using my weeding tool to poke little tiny dots everywhere. Again, just to make the wood grain look a little bit more natural. And you're just simultaneously dipping your sponge into the black, into the antique wax, into the reddish color, and into the clear, and just smudging it all the way across your board until you've gone all the way down. This is also buildable, so like if it dries a little bit and you feel like an area is lighter, you can go back over it for sure. After this part, I definitely end up going back over some of the areas I want darker. So I do let it dry for a few minutes and then I make the areas where it would be glued or cut or whatever a little bit darker again. Just because even though I made them darker in the first place, it wasn't quite as dark as I wanted, and then I darken up the edges too. So just so you're aware, this is what it looks like now, but you'll see in a little bit that I did off screen make those areas darker so it was more prominent. Then I'm also using whatever's left over there and kind of squeezing my sponge and coating the edges so that you can't quite tell it's foam board. It doesn't look exactly like wood, but it does the job. Okay, here's where it became a little bit difficult because my transfer tape of my decal, also I've never made a decal this big ever, so I kind of had to Google it. And I don't know if it was because I was on my second or third drink by now, but my transfer tape kept sticking to itself and ripping in half when I was trying to transfer it. It was really difficult. So I end up just saying screw it to the part that said tequila or tequila and reprinting that because it just kept, it just was not salvageable at that point. So I cut that out and just keep the Daniela and Stevens on top and do it that way. By the way, I have to give a big shout out to my honey because at this point I realized I didn't have any white vinyl like I had hoped for, and without even asking, he offered to take me to Walmart and get me some. So that was super, super sweet of him, and this project would not be here, or at least not in time, if it hadn't been for him, because I would have had to wait and get it myself and then record this all at a later date. So here I'm just sticking our names on the top. Again, I ended up having to recut the Tequila part, at least the first half. I don't know if I did the second half. I think that part might have been okay. But I was really frustrated at this point, so most of that's off camera. So just know that I did that part. And you'll actually see it in a minute here, because you'll see the result of what it looks like with the full phrase on it. Here it is. That's how we're looking so far. It had a bit of dead space or negative space on the far right, so I ended up just painting a little shot glass on it with some white paint and a little lime. We're big tequila drinkers in this house, so this was perfect for it. So I'm just kind of tracing over it again with my white paint, and you'll see it zoomed in a minute here when I kind of show you the whole sign. So here it is right after I finished it, and you'll see it again in a second in the sunlight. This is what it looks like. I'm absolutely blown away by this one. It's my favorite DIY ever, and it would look amazing over a bar or in your kitchen, wherever you want it to hang. If you guys are enjoying any of this content, me, my DIYs, my crafts, my cocktails, I hope you stick around and hit that subscribe button. Alright, this is our final DIY. I really wanted to make a wreath with some of these dried oranges and grapefruits, and I didn't have a wreath form, and I had so many supplies already, so I thought, what can I just do with what I already have, so I don't have to spend money. I mean, I know a lot of my YouTube friends can relate that we keep buying and buying and know that we'll use it eventually, but at this point I was like, I really need to be resourceful. So I sanded down some popsicle sticks I got from the Dollar Tree. They're a little bit thicker ones, but they're not like ginormous, if that makes sense. And I got the sanding block from Dollar Tree as well, and you saw me pick it up with my ladybug friend. Now I'm using the same staining technique with a baby wipe and some antique wakes. The Wisconsin in me came out. And just so it could look good with like that lighter, more natural wood tone, but I just thought the contrast of a darker stain would look really good with this, and I enjoy how it turned out. It looks really classy and yet fresh and spring-like. So yeah, that's what I did here. Then I am taking my popsicle sticks and picking which side I like because, you know, some of them were rougher than others, even though I sanded them down, and flipped them over and made a hexagon shape. And I actually really like this shape for this. I don't know if it comes off this way to you guys, but it almost felt like a honeycomb with a citrus. Like, I don't know, it gave me very much like spring, summery type of vibes. I don't know. I really like how it turned out. So I'm glad that I chose to be resourceful and use my popsicle sticks instead of going out to buy a wreath form after all. Now, I am hot gluing these into place. However, if you'd plan to make this, I would use a dab of E6000 or wood glue because I do have a little bit of trouble later, and maybe I just didn't wait for the wax to dry enough. I'm not really sure, but that would be my advice. Now I'm just arranging whatever type of citrus I want in place onto my hexagon wreath. I do play around a little bit with the upper left-hand corner, which I don't end up gluing at this point, but I do glue it later because I realized when I hung it up it needed to be balanced, which makes complete sense. So again, just play around with what you want here. This is totally customizable. You could also dry out like lemons or limes if you want a variety of color. I just went with grapefruits and oranges in this case. Then I'm taking some more of my extra leaves from old floral picks and gluing them into place as well. I actually took them off the little base, so you can see on the left side that there's a little plastic piece, just because I knew it wouldn't fit as snug under the citrus, so I'm just hot gluing that into place as well. Now I'm going to use some twine to make a hanging piece. So I just put a dab of hot glue on the back and I cut a nice long string and I started there and I just wrap it around. I just thought this would add a nice little touch to the top of it instead of just putting a hanger. So I do wrap it around several times until my string runs out. I thought about kind of transitioning this string into the hanger, but to be honest, I couldn't really figure it out. So I just do it manually and then I take another piece of twine, knot it, and hot glue it into place. So as you can see here, I've got it nice and wrapped up. Then I'm taking a piece of string that I end up cutting in half because I want a double string type of look like I've done in previous DIYs. And I feel like it might hang a little better. I just end up doing a regular knot on the bottom, chopping off any extra, and hot gluing that to the back of the twine that I had already wrapped around my top of my wreath. So here we are, looking pretty cute so far. I actually really loved the way it looked like this, but it did feel a little bit empty. And like I said, I needed to make sure that it would balance as well when it's hanging because it was a bit crooked when I first tried it out. I also decided it needed some more color, so I end up adding some more leaves from my stash as well on the other side of the citrus I had already placed down. So here you can see I played a little bit with the other citrus pieces and what I wanted it to look like. So I ended up using some pieces that I cut in half. There's a slice of an orange as well as a slice of a grapefruit, and I glued those into place as well to help balance this piece out. I think it helps it balance out not only physically but also aesthetically. So even though I was a bit nervous, I really think it helped add to the look of this citrus wreath. Guess what though? It still was not balanced enough, so I just took some extra popsicle sticks and glued them to the back on the side that was not heavy enough, and then just kept kind of checking it out on the wall to see if it would work. I did this a few times until it was able to balance nice and evenly on the wall. Here's how she turned out. This is in the sunlight so you can see its true colors. I think it's absolutely stunning and gives a nice fresh feel. Thanks you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!